Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share today, so let's get started. My name is Daniel. When your own wife tells you, in front of a group of friends, that you don't even have the right to touch her back, it feels like more than just a small rejection. It feels like she is announcing something much bigger, that the closeness you once shared has already died, and you were too tired and too distracted to see it happening. The woman I had been married to for 5 years now acted as if even a light touch for me was strange or unwanted. Our marriage had started with genuine love, teamwork, and warmth, but slowly, without me noticing, all of that had faded away. We met when we were trying to figure out life in our late 20s. At the time, I worked as a financial analyst for an investment firm. The job paid well, but it required long hours and intense focus. Phoebe worked at a marketing agency. Her career was creative, fun, and came with a more flexible schedule than mine. We found each other on a dating app. We matched, started messaging, and quickly decided to meet for dinner. On our first date, the chemistry was immediate. Talking to her felt easy, natural, and comfortable, like we had known each other much longer. The early months of dating were almost perfect. We saw each other several times a week, texted constantly throughout the day, and wanted to spend every free moment together. Phoebe appreciated aspects of me that I deeply cared about. She admired my ambition, my career drive, and my calm, steady personality. She said she felt safe with me, adding that I was more mature and reliable than anyone she had dated before. I admired everything about her. Our emotional and physical connection was powerful. For the first time in my life, I truly felt chosen. Out of everyone she could have been with, she picked me, and she showed it every single day through her attention, affection, and loyalty. I felt valued and respected. We dated for about 2 years before getting married. We had a beautiful wedding with our families and friends. After that, we fully combined our lives and routines. After we got married, my workload increased a lot. The investment firm I worked for promoted me to a senior analyst, which meant taking on more challenging projects, dealing with more clients, and facing much greater pressure to prove myself. My work hours slowly grew longer. I stayed late most nights to finish reports. On weekends, when the markets were unstable, I had to take phone calls. Even after dinner at home, I often opened my laptop again to finish something important. Little by little, the line between my work life and my personal life disappeared. I thought Phoebe understood why I was doing all this. I believed I was working hard for us. I wanted us to be financially stable, to save enough to buy a house someday, to have kids when we were ready, and to live comfortably. I assumed she saw my long hours as a sacrifice for our shared dreams, not as me leaving her behind. What I didn't understand was how much she needed me emotionally, not just physically, in the same room. I thought that being at home, even if I was busy or tired, was enough. But I didn't realize that just being there without talking, without listening, without connecting, wasn't really being present at all. I started coming home more and more exhausted. I would walk through the door completely drained. Instead of wanting to talk, I wanted silence. I wanted to sit alone and clear my head. Phoebe began feeling ignored, even though I never meant to forgive her. She reached out for connection, but I was too tired to meet her halfway. Our conversations got shorter and shorter. The easy, flowing conversations we used to have when we were dating slowly turned stiff and awkward. Even our physical intimacy changed. At first, we had sex several times a week. Then it became once a week. Then maybe once every 2 weeks. And even when we did have sex, it started to feel like something I had to fit in, not something done out of passion or closeness. When Phoebe tried to initiate, I was usually exhausted. When I tried, she could feel that my heart wasn't really in it. Over time, Phoebe began to adjust as I slowly pulled away from her due to work. She also became irritated much more easily. Small things that had never bothered her suddenly made her upset. She would snap at me over tiny mistakes or complain about how tired I always was. She got frustrated with my long work hours and my seeming distraction. The patience she had at the start of our marriage began to disappear. She became more private with her phone, too. If someone called her, she would step into another room to answer. She wasn't doing anything obviously suspicious, but it was different from how open she used to be with me. Arguments started happening more often. They weren't huge fights, but minor problems that kept piling up. She said I didn't listen anymore, that I didn't care about our relationship the way I used to. She said she felt lonely even though we lived in the same house. I ignored most of what she said. I told myself she didn't understand how demanding adult life could be. I thought she expected too much from me and wanted the same level of attention we had when we were dating. I didn't realize she was seriously hurting. I didn't see that she felt utterly alone. Coming home to me, someone who was there physically but not emotionally, felt worse for her than actually being alone. She felt abandoned while still living with me. Eventually, Phoebe stopped trying to connect with me altogether. She stopped giving me surprise hugs when I came home. She stopped leaning against me when we watched TV. She stopped starting conversations or asking about my day. If I tried to touch her, she would move away slightly. These minor reactions said a lot. My touch no longer made her feel loved. It made her uncomfortable. She even started sleeping on the far edge of our bed, turned away from me. She put as much space as possible between us at night. The soft cuddling and sleepy, middle-of-the-night touches that used to come naturally in our early marriage were completely gone. When I finally noticed the change in our relationship, months after it had already started, I knew something was seriously wrong. It hit me hard that Phoebe and I had grown far apart. She wasn't just distant. She was actually avoiding spending real, close time with me. It felt like something essential between us had cracked, and I didn't know how to fix it. As soon as I realized this, I tried to change things. I cut back on my work hours. I told my supervisor that I needed a better balance between my job and my life at home. I started leaving the office around 6 in the evening instead of staying until 8 or 9. I stopped bringing work home on weekends. I tried to be more present, more available for Phoebe. I also put much emotional effort into reconnecting with her. I tried to start deeper conversations. I asked about her day, her feelings, and what she was going through, and I meant it. I suggested date nights, small trips, and fun activities we could do together. I tried to reignite the spark we had when we first got together. But cutting back at work came with consequences. I earned less overtime, which meant less money and reduced my chances of getting promoted. Our income dropped a little. Phoebe noticed immediately, but instead of seeing it as me trying to fix our relationship, she saw it as proof that I wasn't good at balancing work and marriage. She thought I was failing at providing and also failing at being present. She had already been complaining for months that I didn't help enough around the house. She said she handled most of the chores, even though she had a full-time job. So I tried harder. I washed the dishes every night. I did the laundry every weekend. I cleaned the bathrooms and vacuumed without waiting for her to ask. But none of it seemed to matter anymore. Phoebe didn't appreciate any of it. It felt like she couldn't even see my efforts. Too much hurt had already built up between us. Her resentment was deep, and everything I was trying to do felt like it was coming too late. A mutual friend invited us to a beach event she was hosting. It was an adult gathering with several couples from our social circle. Usually I would have said no, because I prefer spending my rare free weekends relaxing at home. But going out together might help our marriage a little. If my wife and I were around other people, it would remind us of how we used to be when things were good. Getting Phoebe to agree was hard. She didn't want to go, and kept saying it would be boring or awkward. But when she heard that some of her favorite people would also be there, she finally agreed. We drove to the beach almost entirely in silence, and the tension between us felt heavy, like a cloud sitting inside the car. The event itself was casual and friendly. People were laughing, chatting, and moving around comfortably with their partners. I watched husbands and wives standing close to each other, holding hands, brushing each other's shoulders, acting warm and familiar. Meanwhile, Phoebe and I felt like strangers in the group. The difference between us and the other couples was hard to ignore. At one point, I walked over to Phoebe while she was talking to another woman. I gently placed my hand on her back, caressing her back, hoping to get an intimate reaction out of her. But Phoebe froze. Her whole body went stiff. She turned her head slightly toward me and said, "You don't even have the right to touch my back." Her words hit me like a punch. I felt exposed, embarrassed, and rejected all at once. She wasn't just refusing intimacy. She was saying I didn't even have the basic right to touch her as her husband. I pulled my hand away immediately. My face felt hot, and I could tell people around us had heard her but were pretending they hadn't. I stood there for a moment, realizing just how far apart we'd grown. Phoebe wasn't just distant anymore. She couldn't even tolerate a simple touch from me. That moment made it clear that our relationship was much worse than I had allowed myself to believe. I tried to stay calm, but inside I felt crushed. I walked away from Phoebe and moved to another area of the gathering. I tried talking to other guests, but my mind wasn't really there. I could barely focus on anything they were saying. Later in the afternoon, I noticed Phoebe talking to another man whom I didn't know well. They were standing close, laughing, and Phoebe even touched his arm while they talked. Seeing her act so relaxed and comfortable with him, while she treated me like I was unwelcome, made something sink inside me. It was painfully clear. I had lost her. Whatever was left of our marriage was nothing more than a legal arrangement, not a real relationship. I left the beach event without saying goodbye to anyone. I drove home alone. Phoebe came home hours later, did not explain, and I didn't ask for one. At that point, I already understood the truth. From that evening through the next day, we didn't say a single word to each other. No good morning, no small talk, not even a nod. When we walked past each other in the hallway, we didn't make eye contact. It felt like we were two strangers who happened to live in the same house, not a married couple who once shared everything. Phoebe pretended the incident at the beach never happened. She followed her regular daily routine, woke up, got ready, did her chores, but her silence said more than any argument could. The quiet in the house felt heavy, like a thick blanket you couldn't breathe under. The tension kept getting worse. Phoebe didn't want to stay in the same room with me for long. She started timing her steps to avoid running into me. Whenever I entered a room, she found a reason to leave. Her constant avoidance hurt more than if she had yelled at me or confronted me directly. After a while, I gave up trying to fix things. I stopped reaching out. No more asking if she was okay. No more attempts at conversations. No more trying to repair something that already felt broken. It felt like we were two married people living completely separate emotional lives. Then the emotional distance turned into physical distance. Phoebe started sleeping in the guest room every night. After dinner, she would disappear into that room, shut the door, and I wouldn't see her again until the next morning. We even stopped eating together. We made our meals at different times in silence. It felt like we were roommates who didn't like each other, not a married couple trying to build a life. This strange, painful pattern continued for around 3 months. We lived under the same roof, but our connection was gone. We acted like we were still married, but the relationship itself was already empty. One evening, I finally asked her directly, "Do you still want this marriage?" Phoebe looked at me for a long time before she answered. Then she said she felt empty and disconnected. She said she couldn't pretend anymore that there was anything left to save. The marriage felt dead to her, and she didn't know how to bring it back to life. I moved out for a while after that. That physical separation made it impossible to lie to myself anymore. The truth was simple. The marriage had died months before we ever talked about it. We had just been walking around inside the ruins of our relationship, pretending everything was still standing. During the time apart, I thought about everything more clearly. I realized that what Phoebe said earlier, about me not having the right to touch her back, wasn't actually about physical touch. It was about the emotional closeness that was missing. Without emotional intimacy, even a simple touch felt wrong to her, almost uncomfortable. Later, during one of our rare conversations, Phoebe admitted she no longer felt the closeness we once had. She said months, even years, of emotional neglect had destroyed her feelings for me. She told me she had tried to express her loneliness many times, but I didn't listen until it was too late. By the time I noticed her pulling away and tried to change, her love for me had already faded. We tried counseling for a short time because I pushed for it. But the sessions only showed how deep our problems were. I felt angry that she didn't appreciate how hard I worked to provide for us. She felt hurt that I was always focused on my career instead of our marriage. The counselor eventually said we had allowed the relationship to fall apart for too long without fixing anything. The marriage ended quietly in the months that followed. There were no big fights or dramatic moments. Just two tired people who couldn't find their way back to each other. In the end, the only thing left to do was talk calmly about splitting our things and filling out the divorce papers. Looking back now, after the divorce, I finally understand things I couldn't see when everything was happening. I learned that love doesn't just disappear overnight. It fades slowly, long before a relationship officially ends. Phoebe had been pulling away emotionally for years, even before that moment on the beach. When she told me I didn't have the right to touch her back, it wasn't sudden. It was a sign that our closeness had already died long before. I was too blind, or maybe too hopeful, to accept that it was gone. I also learned that being physically present means nothing if you're emotionally absent. I came home every night, but I wasn't really there. I didn't talk. I didn't connect. I was tired, distracted, and always thinking about something else. That hurt Phoebe more than if I had told her I didn't have the space in my life for a relationship. My body was in the house, but my heart and mind were somewhere else, and that made her feel even more alone. I learned that ignoring your partner's complaints destroys trust. Every time Phoebe said she felt lonely or forgotten, I brushed it off. I treated her feelings like they were her own problem, rather than something I should care about. Every dismissal pushed her a little further away and made her believe that her needs didn't matter to me. I learned that intimacy needs care and attention. What Phoebe and I had in the beginning wasn't something that could stay strong on its own. I should have been nurturing it, making time for it, protecting it. Instead, I assumed it would keep going while I focused on work, stress, and everything else. I was wrong. Relationships can't run on autopilot, and mine fell apart because I didn't put in the effort. I learned that silence in a relationship is louder than shouting. Months of barely talking, avoiding eye contact, sleeping far apart, and walking around each other like strangers said more than any fight ever could. When people stop arguing, it often means they've stopped caring enough to fix things. That silence was the true sign our relationship was already over. But the hardest lesson of all was this: some damage can't be undone, no matter how much you want to fix it later. By the time I realized how serious our problems were, Phoebe's feelings for me had already changed. She had emotionally moved on. There's a point in relationships where, once you cross it, no amount of effort can bring love back. We had passed that point long before I admitted anything was wrong. Some people say I should have fought harder for the marriage, that I gave up too easily. They think that what happened at the beach should have pushed me into therapy, big changes, and a desperate fight to save what we had. But those people don't understand that by the time I was ready to fight, she had nothing left in her. Others blame Phoebe. They say she should have given me a straightforward ultimatum: change now, or I'm leaving, instead of slowly shutting down. They think I deserved a loud warning. But the truth is, I did get warnings. Every time she reached out and I didn't respond was a warning. I just refused to hear them until it was too late. I'm in a very different place in my life now compared to when I was married. I still work in finance, but I've learned to set healthier boundaries. I leave work at work. I protect my personal time. I've realized that being successful in a career means nothing if you lose the people you care about while chasing that success. I think about Phoebe once in a while. I wonder if she's found someone who gives her the attention and emotional support I failed to provide. I hope she has. She deserved better than what I offered her in the last years of our marriage. Our divorce was heartbreaking. It was just two people who once loved each other deeply, recognizing that their love had slowly died from being ignored for too long. We divided our things, signed the papers, wished each other well, and there wasn't even anything left to argue about. There was nothing left worth arguing for. I regret a lot. I regret not seeing the warning signs earlier. I regret not taking Phoebe's feelings of loneliness seriously when fixing things was still possible. I regret thinking that providing money was enough when what she really needed was my time and my presence. I regret working so much for our future that I destroyed our present. By the time I finally realized how bad things were, she had already let go of the relationship emotionally, even though we were still legally married. My marriage didn't end because of cheating or abuse. It ended because I placed everything else above the relationship until there was nothing left of it. I learned too late that being emotionally present matters far more than being physically nearby or financially supportive. Now I carry these lessons with me. I use them to make better choices at work, so I keep time for my personal life. I'll bring them into any future relationship, hoping to notice problems early rather than too late. And I understand now that someone who loves you today may not love you tomorrow, not if you keep failing to nurture that love.